So welcome back, everybody. This is Paul again, another of my series about esoteric studies after my years of research. And in the last few videos, I've been talking a lot about various kinds of beings and there's an awful lot of conversation these days, and throughout history there's always been conversation about other kinds of beings that aren't necessarily human beings and so on. So today it's a really big subject, and I've listened to an awful lot of different stuff about it, and I thought I'd just share some of the things that I have learned over the years. But one of the first things I want to do is talk about what I always like to talk about is, who are we? This is the oldest question, and honestly, before we start talking about all kinds of other beings that might be out there and so on, or in there, or whatever, that we ought to know a bit more about our own beingness. And I've said in many of my other videos that the human body and this mechanism that we have is a tremendous, tremendous technology. However it became here, it's incredible. And a lot of ancient sages and many thousands and millions of people over the centuries have said, look, this human body, it's a gift, whatever it is, we didn't create it ourselves, and here we are. And it has a whole lot more potential than we're generally told. And throughout history, there's definitely evidence that people have said, have people in power go, they don't want a lot of powerful people out there. So they try to restrict, they try to learn the information themselves and try to use it and misuse it. But to find out who we are first is our priority, you see. And, when we're born in this world, we get taught, oh, here you are, you have a religion and you have a race, or you have whatever, and we get taught by our parents, depending on how enlightened they are, they say, well, you're so-and-so, and this is the way you behave, and this is how you dress, and all that stuff. But throughout history, the ancients, it's not a new problem finding out who we are. And I urge people to take a really deeper look at understanding, well, who are we anyway that's observing here? What is this miracle here that this body just exists, and we go about our business and do our shopping and whatever, and we go home and our little cuts heal and we get rest, and we don't know how all that works. We don't care. We just say, well, when's the next game? When's the next show? Whatever. We don't understand how incredible every human being is. And this is one of the oldest teachings in the world that have come down. It's a teaching of oneness. They said, look, none of us are in competition here, because ultimately, we don't really know. We're born here, and to have our little opinion about everything, and you look up in the cosmos, and to be egotistical about anything is just, why? We don't even control a single one of our breaths. We don't own them. So over the centuries and millions, thousands of years, as human beings discuss these issues and practice and try to understand, well, we go within and find out who we are. And I just urge people to spend a little time in their life just thinking about that a little bit, and maybe go into a forest or some quiet place and just be there, and for a while just put everything in your life aside. Everything, all your ideas about everything, religion, whatever, and just feel a sense of your own presence there. And to realize that we can look around ourselves and we see all kinds of amazing things, and all that we perceive in our memories and our visions and our dreams and all that amazing stuff that's from the time we were born for years and years and years, all of that is us. And it's vast. So each of us, no matter who we are, we're vast beings in a body. And the ancients, like I said, have been researching this for a very long time, and I have some things to share about it, and I wrote this particular board and for another video that I did earlier. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit again about our own beingness, because one way that we can discover ourselves is extremely simple. You just close your eyes sometimes in a quiet place and let everything go, everything completely go, and just be there for a while. Just not an I am this, or I am that, or I like this, or I like that. Just like, it happens to us when we get really tired. See, when the soul the human beings get really tired of searching and searching and searching and trying to find everything outside and trying to assemble everything in just the right order so they feel happy for a while. This is not a new problem, and it has to do with understanding who we really are, because we have fulfillment only in one place, and that's some place that we have to find within ourselves that's immortal. Because we know the first lesson we should all learn when we're young is like, hey, you know, you're only here for a short time. You know, don't get used to it here. I mean, just kind of do something, but realize at some point you check out of this hotel. So when we explore our own being and just go deep inside ourselves, it's an endless, endless process. Enlightenment, whatever people call that, is not a like a jack in the box. You wind it in a certain way and it'll pop up and boom, there you are. He's waving his head and that's it. Okay, it's enlightened, whatever. That's not how it works. A continuous process of expanding our own awareness into ourselves, in our being, our beingness, not our outer identity. Because as I said, you know, our identity, the things that other people perceive of us, is not really us. You see, it's not the complete us. It's like so many problems happen in this world because we're not seeing each other as each other really is. And the ancients and different kinds of teachers that have come over the centuries and thousands of years will say basically we have to go by this oneness, because there's nothing outside this universe. What are we going to do? Stand up and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to figure it all out. We're just a pea in a soup or something. You know, we're just like these little tiny assemblies of energy that are here for a little while, like a little whirlwind for a while, and after a while it's gone. And in that little time that we have, we're trying to discover who we are and what's going on. So we have to listen to some of these ancient teachings, because it really isn't a new problem. So I just urge people to practice and find your own way, you know, explore your own identity and beingness, and realize that no matter who you are, however who you are, you're always can expand into something, you see. So again, the question of other beings, and say, well, okay, well, we know that there's some really, really intelligent animals out there, and they can do stuff that we can't do, and they're just amazing. So we know that intelligence has so many incredible different manifestations. It's so obvious. So why shouldn't we imagine that? Let's say if we consider ourselves the top of everything, okay, we're it, you know. So let's say human beings evolve for another 5 million years. What is going to happen? Are we going to get like better teeth or little nice ears or what? Hair that never gets gray? Or what's the evolution here? See, because if it's not an evolution of consciousness, of evolving the consciousness into the infinite again and back into the wholeness, then what's it for? It's just an empty thing. So in fact, a lot of people disagree with the idea that, oh, is there a God or whatnot. Actually, if you really, there's oneness, okay? And if you really get down to the nitty-gritty on the atomic level, from the microscopic to the macroscopic, in fact, it's all, there's nothing else but oneness, and we're just here along for the ride. And a little tiny piece of us, a little tiny, tiny piece of us has a little bit of that oneness in there, so we can sit around, we can learn amazing things in a lifetime, and we can observe and enjoy. And if we want to explore the idea of other kinds of beings, like I'm going to get into here, we need to understand that from one point of view, a human being is a god, because we have so much incredible power and we have so many abilities, and most of the time 99% of the people on the earth aren't using a fraction of what they could be using, and they don't even know themselves. And we've lost our historical memory, the ancient memory. That's why these ancient teachings have value, because they teach us how, look, use this human body to explore and grow into a greater sense of oneness. There's no end to it. I mean, you can't just say, okay, I've got there now, I've got enlightened here, but it's not like that. It's sort of, there's a continuous evolution. So just try to imagine, okay, let's say you feel really loving to people, and you feel really kind, and you want to be service, and you want to really, let's say, like the Buddha. The Buddha is repeated to say, look, hey, I feel so much joy and so much bliss and so much love that I take my personal responsibility. I won't leave the solar system, until every being that I encounter gets bliss. So this is the kind of resolution that some of these great sages might have. So Buddha was revered. Look, okay, I'm determined. You take responsibility. So one of the things I came across in researching ancient traditions was the four pillars of the Hindu tradition. Hindu is just a label, but a particular tradition of mystical and personal development. Be authentic, authenticity, integrity, responsibility, and enriching others. You become authentic, you have integrity, you act and you are faithful, and you're responsible. Being responsible, the more responsibility, the more enlightened a person might get, the more knowledge a person might get. They say, okay, I see all this suffering here, I see all this thing, I have something to share. I accept responsibility. Not. But being, as we grow, we feel a gratitude, and we are grateful for where we came, but we also aspire to something greater. The reason that people have prayer has, people pray for a new couch. Next thing you know, their neighbor dumps one out on the alley. It's crazy what people pray for. In terms of prayer, what are we going to pray for? We're going to pray for more expansion of consciousness, more bliss, more joy, more love, more. Well, they have this precious life. Don't pray for a new couch. So, a lot of people who get introduced to quote spirituality and so on, they have a little fear of, oh, do I have to be devoted, or do I have to bow to anybody? Look, I have seen people literally bow to their dog. It's just, whenever you receive gratitude, people love each other, man and woman, children, parents. There's people who say, look, I am so happy, I am so grateful, and there's a relationship there. Now, if I come across someone, I've come across some people in my life at different times, there's just so much joy and love that just exudes, and they're so kind, and they've done really nice things, and I felt a really nice thing. I just say, well, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. They're like a little goddess or a little mini deity. It's not wrong to appreciate good things where it's due. And then in return, we pass it on, because every human being, that's the whole part. We want to expand into some continuously expansion of our beingness and our consciousness. And the way we do that is letting things go out, is spreading out and giving and being a conduit. You see, the people that they call avatars are just really a stream of energy, you might say. Let's say a beam of an energy. You say, okay, this particular really, really anchors a point on the planet or some understanding, and say, look, this is a principle. And there's many, many avatars that have come, and there's many different kinds. There's avatars that you might call some of the great composers avatars. They brought certain kinds of music that lasted for centuries. An avatar doesn't mean like a savior, that someone just pops out of the sky and says, okay, everybody, you're going to my planet now, and whoop-de-doo. It's an opportunity for those beings that have taught and come and taught worldwide and so on, like the many that have been through history. They continued on their way to have more opportunity to radiate, you might say. So it's important to contemplate our own beingness, because as we realize, there's a place in the Upanishads where it says, when you're looking outside, you see duality, where you see another and have another. That's the duality. But when the seer is within, all they see is the oneness and their continuous expansion and immortality. There's the oneness of being. There's no conflict there. There's just rest there. And the whole idea of God, in a way, people fight about this. It's such a big tragedy because, well, they fight about my God, this God, and how many gods are there. The concept of oneness, ultimately, as I've mentioned so many times, we're all heading toward oneness. We're not trying to get on top of the pile here. You know, it's not that kind of... As you become more toward the oneness, what does the oneness do? What does that infinite oneness do? If you think about a metaphor of the ocean rocking back and forth, centuries, centuries, and centuries, that earth rocks back and forth, and the oceans make all that life happen, rocking back and forth. You see, the ocean has been symbolized like the mother of life. The ancients knew this stuff. There's a lot of really deep things about esoteric studies that I really encourage people to get into, and I'll be discussing them in some of the other videos. Let's go through these little terms here again. I've talked about a hierarchy of beingness. Not a beings, but just like a tree has all these branches, there's just all these different flow of fluid, and what's flowing is integration, flowing harmony. There's an instinctive mechanism of the universe to harmonize things and to balance everything. It takes a while in some situations. There's beings associated with the different elements. I'll try to talk about that in some of the other videos. You might call it galactic being. The reason that ancient teachers said and encouraged people to put their own consciousness into the cosmos, like in the sense of having gods and goddesses and deities, they up in the sky and they have this symbol and that symbol, because let's say if you practice these techniques and you went outside and let's say there's no lights out there and you're going up in the sky and you look in this direction at night and you see these things, your body, you have a profound realizations on some really deep level that download into our psyche will come whether we can use an iPhone or not. It can come to a person with a camel just sitting there, profound realizations and understanding about the cosmos because you're having a direct connection with it instead of having a connection with a machine or something. So a lot of things were realized that way through deep insight and solitude and practice of meditation and so on. And you realize, look, like a tree branches off, knowledge of the cosmos and the unfoldment of evolution. You always see these evolutionary charts, and they always start with this big trunk at the bottom, and it's like, well, that was that thing, and then it went this way and that way. So probably before that big trunk, there was a whole bunch of other stuff too, but we don't talk about that. So it's just, we are in an infinite flow ourselves. And we can easily get a better feel of the depth of our being by just being quiet and letting go of everything for a while and just realize, look, I don't care who you are out there, you're vast. You are vast, everybody is vast, all that potential. The stuff that we go around thinking of our little identity might be just enough to fit in a little thimble or capsule or something. But we deep down we know, hey, there's a lot more to us. People can live their whole lives and have several careers and develop a whole bunch of skills and talents and all kinds of stuff. So we ourselves, I keep trying to explain to people, look, you, everybody, we all have a lot more potential, but in the same way that some animals are gifted, dogs and cats, their life, they have a chance to be around human beings and they do really well with human beings, and then they have their own level of evolution and harmony, because it's not just the body that's evolving. You see, it's the psyche. If the beingness inside of my being needs greater senses or unusual senses or whatever, then they can get a different kind of body.